Hey guys, for today's video, I am doing a mermaid in watercolor and colored pencil. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Christina, you started sketching without us. And I did. It was an accident. I'm sorry. But I had started sketching. I did 3 mermaids originally, and I recorded them all at the same time. I am not sure what happened to the beginning of the sketch, the video for it, but it's gone. It's just gone. So I am sorry for that, but you will get to see me struggle. Like, the chaos in this video is still here. You get to see all of it. I had originally sketched 3 mermaids out, and I started on my iPad because watercolor paper doesn't really like when you sketch and erase on it. When you erase, you can't see it, but there's like this thin layer that makes it not want to absorb the watercolor paint. So generally when I'm doing a watercolor piece, I try not to do anything that needs too much erasing, but with this one, it kind of got away from me a little bit. As much as I did struggle with this, I'm really glad that I did finish because it ended up really cute. And as you can see, I kind of had a difficult time trying to decide which way to position her head and her hands, and even her hair I was struggling with a little bit. Like, the only thing I knew when I went into it is I wanted this particular mermaid to be like round and squishy and flowy, like a mermaid. And this year I've been currently doing a lot more traditional work, and when you're doing traditional work, you have to kind of just go with whatever goes down on the paper, because unlike with digital, you can resize it, you can adjust it, you can move it to a different place on the paper. And when you're doing traditional, once it's down, and you kind of have to make it work. And the only thing I can say is, even if it doesn't look right, just keep messing with it until it does look how you want it to look. I eventually settled on a sketch that I was happy with, which when I'm looking back as I'm editing this, I look back and that first pose that I did, it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. Maybe the hair was a little too swirly, but that first pose was fine. And that's another thing that I wanted to talk about in this video, was just second guessing and like the perfectionism. If something doesn't look just right, like I will just erase it. I have a really bad habit of sketching something, and then once it starts going a little sideways, I stop. And so that's been my goal. My major goal this year is to continue to draw something, and like, even if it's not going how I think it should be going, like, try to figure out at least what I can do to make it look how I wanted it originally, so that the next time I can just go straight to that. I can skip over the stuff that I know that I already don't like doing. Another thing with this paper is it's only 5 by 7 inches, so you can only get so much detail onto that small of an area. And like, I kept drawing these hands out, like where you could see like each individual finger, and it really didn't matter, because in the end I should have just kept it simplified as a shape instead of each individual finger, because once I added that paint on there was no way, unless you're using miniature brushes and tiny little detail brushes, you're not going to be able to get that detail with watercolor on such a small painting. And it really doesn't matter, is what I was trying to get at. And when I started adding the paint, my original idea was just to add blue shadows everywhere. Like, come in and add the shadows where I wanted shadows to be, and then go on top of that with another layer of like the base color. But as I was putting this blue down, I realized she was supposed to be blue all along. She was clearly meant to be a little blue mermaid. Another thing that was really weird is my paper was extremely dry. Like, I don't remember it being this dry, but it did not want to take any of the water. And I don't think this is 100% cotton, like it says. This is the Strathmore Ready Cut watercolor paper, pre-cut. It was really, really dry. Like, it just sucked in that water, and not even in a good way. Like, normally when you're using cotton watercolor paper, it just like soaks in gently and you can lift up really easily. And in this one, the water was almost wanting to just sit at the top. And now that I'm thinking about that, that actually could have been from all the erasing that I was doing. So that probably did not help with that. But once I kind of got the feel of the paper and how it was going to be reacting, that was a little bit more easy. I started treating it less like a wash and more like as if I would do with marker or even colored pencil. And I already knew when I started that I wanted to add colored pencils, so I really wasn't worried like if there was any mistakes with the watercolor. The watercolor was just basically going to be like a base for me to put on colored pencil, because that was my plan all along. I don't know why. It's just so much funner to do. Funner? It's so much more fun to do watercolor with colored pencils on top. I love it. I think you can just get little details in there that you couldn't necessarily do with either or, you know what I mean? And it's so much more forgiving. If I make any of the mistakes with the watercolor, I can easily just fix it with the colored pencil. I added a green wash there. That was something I learned watching Chris Hong videos. If the colors are ending up looking a little bit chaotic and like they don't really fit together, you can add a simple base flat wash of color and it will kind of bring everything together and unify it a little. My main goal with the finishing touches with this watercolor was just to make sure that everything was soft. I could bring in sharp details with the colored pencil, but I knew that I was going to be fighting it if I didn't at least try to soften it out a little bit with my watercolor brush. These eyes I kind of messed up a little bit, like when I was drawing them out with the colored pencil. I don't know what happened, but one of them ended up like way lower than the other one, so she looked really derpy and I had to fix that. As you can also see, her boobs are derpy, and that's another thing that I was mostly able to fix up with the colored pencils. For some reason, I grabbed the smallest pink pencil that I have and I tried to give her a little bit of blush on her cheeks and her lips, but I ended up going over with the blue because I felt like it was clashing too much with those colors, and I really liked the monochromatic vibe that I was getting from her. And I enjoyed the blue and the green. Like, she just looks like she's in the water. Originally, when I started, I was thinking that I was going to add like a bunch of lines into the tail, like, you know, like a fishtail. But as I was going onto it with the colored pencil, I realized I liked how it looked better, like simple, like they almost look a little see-through, and that's kind of fit what I was going for more. For mostly with the colored pencil, I was realizing that I did do it pretty small, so all the details that I thought I was going to be able to get in there, I had to relax and kind of focus more on just, you know, tightening up the silhouette a little bit, tightening up just a hint of the fingers, and I didn't have to press hard. Like, I know it kind of looks like I'm pushing hard on this because I have like a claw-like grip apparently, but for the most part, you don't have to push hard. The color lays down really nicely on top of the watercolor. The most thing that I was trying to accomplish with the pencils here is just making everything look a little bit more three-dimensional, adding shadows underneath of her little shell bra and underneath of her, I don't know, what do you call those little fin thingies on top of her tail? I don't know. Anyway, I was trying to make them look like they popped out more, and adding a little bit more detail to the bubbles, and adjusting a little bit of her derby boobs and adding a little bit of light there. It was actually really hard to add the white on top, which I have a gel pen somewhere and some white gouache that probably would have worked better, but this really wasn't that serious. It was more like just getting me into the hang of doing some watercolor painting again, which I am really rusty at. I haven't done it in months, and this was a nice gentle way to ease into it. If I was going to do another watercolor painting again soon, I would just remember to draw bigger and to mix up way more paint than I think I'm gonna need, because I ran out way too many times, and also just to relax. It's traditional media. It does not have to be perfect. You can't fix it once you put it down, you know, and most of the time it looks good anyway. I just overthink it. And if there's one thing you need to know about me, it's that I overthink the crap out of pretty much everything. I had a blast making this video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed watching it. If you did, it would mean so much to me if you would hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps my channel out. I'm putting out new videos every Friday, and I hope to see you guys next week. Bye!